All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Melanie and Isabel, for giving this opportunity. Is everything okay with seeing my screen?
Yes, clear.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because of the scheduling here, I'm going to go very quickly through this. I'm very happy to have this opportunity, but I would very much like to share what I have been working on. And this project that I am doing is very much still in the beginning stages. And it's an ongoing research project, and I'm very happy to be able to share a little bit about it right now, but it should be going on for the next couple of years. I call this Understanding Storytelling, Psychiatrists, Novelists, and Motivating Readers. And I will just give you a quick overview over these next few minutes. Let's see here if I'm switching the goodness, I don't know how well I'm doing this. I'm still on slide 1, correct? Ah, there's slide 2. My name is Peter Edwards, and right now I am a lecturer at King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. I also do some work as an English language specialist for the US Department of State. And we actually have a presentation coming up in the next couple of weeks at the TESOL International in Pittsburgh. It's about BIPOC educators, and that is about diversity and trying to bring more diversity into teaching around the world. I'm also a board member of Educators Worldwide, which is a very small, right now, nonprofit organization. And if any of you are interested in sharing a tip that is related to what I'm going to talk about, or even something else, please check out this website and contact me if you are ever interested. And we have some podcasts and things, and are always looking for educators around the world. There's my LinkedIn information, and you can look for that. And there's a small poll on the profile page of my LinkedIn. And there is my email address up at the top here in Saudi Arabia. So what's the takeaway that I'm hoping that everyone can get from these next few minutes is something that I call the Rainbow Podium. And I call it that because it's a mixture of 7 and 3. The 7 part is something that's applicable in almost any situation. Just choose 7 things. In the case of this presentation, those 7 things are 1-minute films, but it really could be anything. It could be a student's thesis statement. It could be an essay, a television show, a book, a photograph, almost anything. Take 7 of them and then have your students choose their top 3. Give them a gold, a silver, and a bronze. This evaluation pushes our students into the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy of higher level thinking, and then also giving these students a chance to explain their selections. Why did they choose this as number 1? Why did they choose this as 2 and 3? So here in our next slide, this is what I used. I used 7 1-minute films. If you'd like to take a screenshot or come back and look at the recording later, you can see the 7 films. I won't go through them. Time is short right now, but they are all 1-minute films, very brief, but they do tell a story very rapidly. And they're actually quite fun, and they don't take very long. So again, the takeaway is that this is something that can be done easily in 1 class period, or even half of a class period, or as a not too time-consuming assignment. Have the students watch, have the students take some notes as they're watching, and then just select their top 3 out of the 7. I did this with a group of people. I brought together some old students and some colleagues and friends and family members. I brought them together, and that relates to the title of my presentation today, because Two of the people that I chose on this dream team are two psychiatrists, and the other is a practicing fiction writer, a novelist and short story writer. If you noticed my name, you might notice that Henry Edwards has the same last name because he is my father. He has been practicing psychiatry for, this is his 6th decade. And then Yini Shin, she is actually a former student of mine from South Korea many years ago. And she also became a psychiatrist. And so I wanted to use two psychiatrists that are both very interested in story to talk a little bit about why. And I won't go into all of this. As I said, this is an ongoing research project. And so we're going to write a lot of this up. So this is just an overview, but very briefly, here's a couple of quotes that you can look at your leisure another time. But Yeni talks about just storytelling and how stories actually become a living experience for the reader. And they create an emotional ventilation period for the reader. And this is actually very helpful, very therapeutic for readers. And Yeni does something called narrative psychotherapy, where she actually has people read stories and write stories to help them with their own mental health issues, because it has been found with neurology and psychotherapy that going through the process that a character might be going through in a story can be very beneficial for a reader who might be struggling with some of these same difficulties. Moving along, Henry Edwards, yes, my father, he talks a bit also about how the experience of reading a story can be very, very powerful. It helps to boost our self-esteem, but it also can sometimes get in the way. And we use Don Quixote as an example, because this is somebody who's very, very involved in stories, and it has a very, very big effect on his life. Those of us who have not read Don Quixote, it's a very, very long novel, but it's an excellent one. But we'll refer back to that in just a moment, this novel, Don Quixote. Very quickly, Gregory Smith, who writes novels, you can find him on Amazon, and he talks about how very often stories and characters can surpass real events in people's lives, because we actually get to know characters so very well. Some of us, if we've read Hamlet a few times, Hamlet is in many ways more real than some of the people that we know. Not only are we very familiar with them, but they don't change. They stay in that one place, so we can really study them and really get to know this character. It's a very fascinating thing. And so some things that Greg does is he really looks at that relationship between the writer himself and readers, and trying to get to those levels of deep empathy. Moving along quickly, here's the Don Quixote I was speaking about, and there's actually a graphic novel version. And the whole idea of graphic novels is something that is very interesting also in this big project that I'm involved with. Here are a couple of books that are very interesting. They talk a bit about comics and graphic novels and how things have changed in recent decades, and they are taken more and more seriously as literary entities in the world, and they are not just for kids anymore. So a couple of books, Mind in Motion by Barbara Tversky, and Svetlana Miller's Hacking Graphic Novels are excellent books for anybody interested in using these in the classroom and using it as a gateway to more and more reading. Briefly, what I will do now is to show, I have actually 7 people that were part of this reading, part of this 7 films. And as I said before, I had each of the people watch these 7 films and give them the top 3 a silver or a bronze or a gold medal. And here are the examples of their S for silver, B for bronze, G for gold. And even within just 7 people, you see a wide range of diversity. Nobody in the 7 people chose anything that was really very similar in terms of these 7 films. And I have done the same kind of rainbow podium with more than 100 of my students, and still none of them come up with the same thing. This is very valuable to show students how their opinions are very diverse and that nobody looks at even a small number of things the same way. Everyone has their own opinion. This helps very often for students to open up about expressing their opinions because they get to see that everybody is a little different and that their opinions are not wrong. They are just different from others, and that's really okay. Let me move along quickly and tell you a little bit about this dream team that I put together and how diverse it was. It had several people of different ages. You can see here several different countries, different generations, different occupations and levels of being students. And it was really very fascinating to have this group. And I will continue working with them, and this ongoing project is going to continue to draw on how all of them look at storytelling in lots of different ways. I'm going to start wrapping up in another couple of minutes and see if there are any questions, but I did want to move quickly through this so that we can all move on to our last formal sessions. But very quickly, here is something that is fun to do. It's a correlation table. I know a lot of us know about correlation, but maybe our students won't understand it so much. But if we just list the different people, the 7 different people, and you can do this with your entire class, and see how they judged the different stories. And you can start to see how similar or different people are. And it's a fun game. It helps to bring together a class because they get to see, oh, you chose some very similar things to what I did, and oh, you're quite a bit different. It's a great way to get people to start talking about something. So it not only gets people to express themselves, but also to compare each other and how they feel about things. And it works very nicely. So quickly, after doing this, what we move into is how can students tell their own stories? And so we talk a little bit about DIY, do-it-yourself storyboarding. What I teach my students so that they can do something a little bit similar and help their own visual literacy is I teach them 7 different types of shots. The extreme long shot and long shot, to the middle, close range, and extreme close-ups, then the lower ant view and bird's eye view. And I have students actually go into their own world and create their own stories. I have them do something, and I'll show you our example here in just a moment of what I did actually just yesterday. But we use visual thinking strategies. This is something else that you can take a look at on your own. There's a lot of good research out there about these, but basically the entry to this idea of strategies is to ask these 3 different questions. What's going on in this picture? What do you see that makes you say that? And what more can you find? And you can just do this in lots of different ways. I'm going to show you very quickly what I did just yesterday. I took several photos and I just used my smartphone camera. I just took a few pictures of my little wooden action figure, and I just took these 7 pictures all from these different angles, and all together they come up with these 7. And what I do with students, even before I have them do this themselves, I have them look at a group of 7 photos, and I have them say, okay, how would you arrange these 7? Which one would you choose to be first, to be second, to be third? And it's always a bit amazing to them when I say, if you have just 7 photos, or a rainbow of 7 colors, if you could permute these into all the different possible combinations, how many would there be? They're usually quite shocked to realize that mathematically, if you count it up, there are 5,040 different ways to arrange the colors of the rainbow, or these 7 images on the screen now. So if you were going to storyboard from just these 7 images, you could come up with, at the very least, 5,040 different stories. And so what students start to do is they start looking at all of the different things, and they start to get some skills, thinking, wow, I can change my camera angle and I can make certain things more important, or things like that. And then we go back, we watch short films or even television, and we start to see that we can break apart anything into its smaller pieces, start putting it together, and then we can tell our own stories. Then we can analyze the stories that we see, and we can better and better talk about things. When we get better and better at understanding how to create our own stories, how to read stories better, we start getting more and more interested in reading. I use a couple of comparisons when I talk about, I use a lot of comparisons. I'll just talk about one, football, soccer. And I ask my students and I say, why are you so interested in soccer? It's such a popular sport around the world, but it's so low scoring, and it's so, it just kind of goes back and forth without a lot happening. And they're like, oh, no, 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 soccer is so exciting. But when I listen to them, I hear a couple of things. They start to see the skill behind soccer. They talk about how they see the skill. They start to understand that there is a subtext to soccer. It's not just the goals that are scored, but there are so many other things that are going on in the game that they watch. And so if we can help students see some of the things that are going on in story, they might improve their own motivation. So that's part of what this is happening here with all the different shots that we're learning and the different ways to talk about that. Another thing that is very important in terms of why our students like football, like soccer so much, is because it brings them together with their friends. They watch together, they talk about it together, and that social bonding is a big part of why they enjoy watching football. So how can we bring that into reading, into storytelling? And I believe that by doing some of the things that I've mentioned here, we can bring in those elements of mastery and also social bonding into story telling and story listening to and watching. And if we do that in a group, and I'll see how we are similar and different, the social bonding comes together. And hopefully this can help motivate our students to read more. I'm going to come to an end now. You can see, once again, here's the information. Please feel free to contact me through my email or LinkedIn. And there is a poll, once again, on LinkedIn. Please fill that in if you have a chance, or pass that on to any of your friends or colleagues who are unable to be with us right now. So thank you all for being here and participating, and I enjoyed listening to all of your presentations. And thank you again, Melanie and Isabel, for giving me this opportunity at the end. So I will be happy to answer any questions, but I wanted to zip through quickly so that we can all move on to the rest of the closing ceremonies for this excellent TESOL Arabia 2022. Shukran lak. Thank you all.